been.
No. Yes, here you go. A little transition. All right, so we received a question from Cache during the week, and it's a question straight up for Laura. And the question is, Laura, I love your shots on Instagram. Can you share some of your photo tips for New Zealand, please?
I absolutely can.
All right.
So, yeah, I think there's a few tips that I can share which basically anyone can do. You don't have to have a crazy fancy camera, because that's the thing. A lot of people sort of think that they have to have massive DSLR cameras, but a lot of phones nowadays are pretty damn good at taking photos. So the first tip I would give is actually use what equipment you have. You don't have to spend loads on getting new fancy equipment until you are ready to, until you're like, okay, I've mastered the phone, I want to spend more money and get some more gear. And then that's a good time to get more gear.
Yeah, you don't need the biggest camera in the world to get started. It's all about good shot composition, and even post-editing is actually, quite powerful even on newer phones nowadays.
Absolutely.
So you don't necessarily need to buy an annual subscription to Photoshop and a $3,000 camera. There's no need for that.
Because also on top of that, you might get a camera, and then as you realize, as you're taking more photos, you realize that maybe that camera that you spent thousands on wasn't actually the right camera that you wanted. Yeah. So it's best to get into it first, then go get the right gear. Another tip I would give, this is more for actually taking the photos, is always find new angles. So when you're taking travel photos, you'll probably see the same sort of angles taken for the same destinations on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. The same shot is taken every time from the same angle. And yeah, even people going somewhere and just taking it at eye level, that is obviously the standard to do. But if you want to make your photos look really interesting and really different, then always look for new and different, even crazy angles, even angles that you might think would be really weird to do, like, getting quite low even right on the ground to do some photos looking up, or going really, really high, or, behind something, so you have maybe something in the foreground and the landscape in the background.
Partial views are also good, yeah.
Yeah, so you just really, it's about taking actually quite a lot of photos, but from lots of different angles, because then you might, as you're looking through them later, you'll probably see like, oh, actually that was quite an interesting different sort of shot that probably not a lot of other people have got. So yeah, just always look for new and different angles. Another thing for your composition, this is kind of a beginner's basics photo tip, but it is the rule of thirds. So what you'll see on a lot of cameras and even on a lot of phones is that you can put up this grid on your screen, which is, 2 vertical lines, 2 horizontal lines, splitting it up into basically thirds horizontally and vertically. So what is good about this is that if you're unsure of how to compose your photo, then it's a good way to fall back onto lining up, say, your subject in one of those thirds. So either, a bit to the side, a bit to the other side, maybe a bit on top, a bit on the bottom, but basically the point is not to always center all your photos. To make something look quite, nice and different, then the rule of thirds is a good tip to fall back on, and I fall back on it all the time, and it always works out. So yeah, that's always good for composition. Another tip is, I will actually just refer to, because we do have an article on nzpocketguide.com, which is how to take better travel photos, and it is meant for beginners. It is definitely not for photographers that probably know all these tips already, but if you just want to take better travel photos when you're just doing casual travel and just tourism, then these are tips that anyone can do. So another tip is to get yourself in the photo. I know this can be quite difficult, but you will feel really pleased. I think people that do enjoy taking photos, you probably will feel really have quite a rewarding feeling of managing to get yourself in the photo. Even if you're traveling solo, there are ways of doing it, and obviously the timer setting is always good. And even if you don't have a tripod, not many people want to travel with a tripod. They can be pretty bulky.
It's just us.
It's just us. But yeah, one thing that we learned a lot while doing New Zealand's biggest gap year, which is when Robin and I did 365 days of 365 activities, and we were trying to take lots of amazing photos for you guys, which actually had us in the photos so you could get a sense of, picture sort of yourselves in that destination as well. So it's always cool to get people in the photos. So when you're going to a place, actually have a look around and see where can you set up your camera or your phone, sort of maybe have something in your backpack that you can lean your phone up against. For instance, I've been to a waterfall hike recently and there was a rubbish bin actually quite nearby, and I just propped up my camera on the rubbish bin and just had a few things around to secure it like that were in my backpack, maybe like my first aid kit or something, like just something to keep it sturdy. Then putting on the timer on for 10 seconds, and even better if your camera has the ability to, if you can allow your camera to take, say, 10 shots after 10 seconds, and then while you're getting your photos done, while it's taking the photos for 10 shots for 10 seconds, not for 10 seconds, but 10 shots after 10 seconds, then try different poses, try different photos, because if you just do the one pose, it's very often that you come back to your camera and you're like, oh, actually, that pose was not looking as good as I had it in my head. So yeah, try lots of different things. Like, don't be afraid to try, just try different poses and stuff as well. And there's always the classic one where you can have your back turned to the camera.
Yeah.
And
also what you can do is move yourself as well. If you haven't used any kind of like autofocus or anything like that, you can move closer to the camera or further from the camera, and you'll see that it would just make a massive difference. So if you're unsure and you're like, I don't have 10 poses in my head, it's absolutely okay. Do 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, something like that, and you'll find that you actually get something quite different. And I usually find that quite cool.
Yeah. Another tip about composition is use leading lines. So this means when you see some lines that, for instance, in New Zealand, there's lots of boardwalks. So when you're doing a hiking trail, or even a hiking trail itself, you'll notice how if you're composing a photo, you'll see sort of like these lines leading to maybe a landscape or something, and that is a good way to compose your photo so that your eyes are drawn to whatever you're trying to showcase on your photo, for instance. So for instance, even if you're on a boat or a sailing trip, you have lots of lines, ropes and stuff, and you can sort of use those lines to lead to basically whatever is the main thing you want to take a photo of. So that's another easy way to compose photos, and that's quick and easy to do when you're on the go. Another tip is anything looks good during sunrise or sunset. So, it's always, if you do want to actually get some really stellar shots, then it is worth getting up quite early to get some photos at sunrise, because anything...
Get up early, you lazy man.
Yeah, get up early. Because anything, just landscapes will look amazing at sunrise or sunset. And usually sunrise is usually easier to sort of... Well, no, I mean, maybe I was going to say it's maybe easier to get to, but some people maybe don't want to wake up that early. But it is worth maybe once or twice during your trip to get up early and, try getting some of those awesome sunrise shots. So do you have any more tips to give people?
No, I think let's wrap it up. We do have an article on the NZ Pocket Guide with plenty of tips to take awesome pictures in New Zealand and across the world. But we by no means professional photographers. We just do pictures as we go, and we travel a lot, so we have had the chance to take photos of plenty of stuff, very, very many places in New Zealand. If you want to follow us on Instagram, since the question from Cache was about Instagram, it's at NZ Pocket Guide. You're more than welcome to join us then. And for all your travel tips and much more, hit like, hit subscribe, keep on joining us on the channel, and check out nzpocketguide.com. In the meantime, let's go back to the live chat and see what are the live questions right now.